the higher ups are having conversations with other higher ups. The reality, if you only have 450 players in the NBA, statistically, the reality is you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than making it to the NBA.
Putting you on the spot here.
Are you putting me on the spot, or are you putting Kenya on the spot? I always tell this story. My first basketball hoop, I took an old bicycle tire and I took all the spokes out of it, nailed it against a piece of wood on a tree. Right. Oh. That was my first hoop.
Any financial commitments from government?
So
we are privileged today to have Michael Finley, who is the lead NBA Kenya.
Yes.
Yeah. Got right.
You got it right.
Okay. This is Joel Omoto, obviously talking to PAL Sports. Michael, obviously the Kenyan office opened in November 2023.
Yes.
Just maybe close to 2 years. What did you say have been the success stories so far, and perhaps the challenges that you've faced so far?
Great. Thank you for having me. Yes. So since November 2023, officially opening an office here, I guess success stories, one, leading into opening of the office, just maybe September of 23, we were privileged to host, the Minister of Sport at the time, C.S. Ababu, Governor Sakaja, President Ruto. We were honored to host them in our office in New York, where we signed an MOU with the Ministry of Sport present, but to go across Ministry of Sport and Ministry of Education with 3 objectives in that MOU. One is to assist with getting the game, developing the game in the school system in Kenya. 2 was to assist with building of facilities. And the third construct was assisting with identifying and developing elite talent in Kenya. So I'm proud to say that, we have done significant things in all 3 of those pillars since opening the office. We have launched a partnership with Safaricom, with M-Pesa Go, where we are really proud to say that we ran the first structured program in the junior schools, right? So since you moved to the new format in the school system, the junior schools under 16, we ran a campaign in 4 regions, Mombasa, Nairobi, Kisumu, Eldoret. We had 2,000 players, male and female, that were a part of that were in those 4 regional tournaments. From those 2,000, as well as reaching out across to the Kenya Basketball Federation's network, we then hosted a top 100 camp in Mombasa during the national school competition, the finals. So that was one of the big things we've done with Safaricom in the junior schools category, and to combine with that, we've done a program with the French Development Bank, AFD, the Red Cross, where we've identified coaches as well as players here in Nairobi that we are developing. We've reached through that program a little bit more than 7,000 young people. We recently had a program for deaf players as part of that program. So developing the game in the schools, we've really had some good effort. We've done a lot of good work and gotten off to a good start in that space. In the court build space, one of the first things we did was we built a double court out at the Kenya Academy of Sport in Kasarani in partnership with CAS and the Ministry of Sport and the French Development Bank. So we launched a court there, and then recently we built another court, and there are more courts forthcoming. We built another court in Banana at the Loweswell Academy. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things we've done in the infrastructure space, and we are aggressively pursuing building more courts. The third pillar is around the elite player identification and development. And so I was proud to say one of the first things we were able to just educate the U.S. Embassy about one of who I think is probably Kenya's best female player ever, a young lady from Mumias, Medina Okot. So I had the pleasure of meeting her. The embassy didn't really know she existed, although they had rejected her a few times to get her visa. And so when we explained to them how talented she was, we were able to help her get out and go to Mississippi State. Now she's signed with South Carolina, which is the top program, women's college basketball program in America. So, we've done things in that space. And then we did the Top 100 camp. We've done a lot of things to identify young players. We sent 2 of Kenya's young ladies in the high school age category down to Basketball Without Borders in South Africa. And they were 2 of 30 females chosen in high school age females from across the continent. So that's a long explanation. But those are some of our success stories so far, as well as doing watch parties and some other things. And we got a lot of things forthcoming.
Yeah, 7,000, that's huge.
Yeah.
And how do you make sure that we perhaps don't lose these talents in between? Because we see a lot of talents, especially in school, as they play so well in the competitions, but somehow they disappear because perhaps there's no proper pathway.
Sure.
How do you make sure that they don't get lost?
Well, that's a great question, and we don't have all the answers to that. What we are doing, one is we're working in close collaboration with the Kenya Basketball Federation to make sure that they, our database gels with their database. We share information, and there's one large database that sits with them. We have our own database from the small programs that we do. And then what we do is, like I spoke about with the 2 young ladies from that went to BWB, we are attempting to help young people identify other opportunities where either we can help further expose them, or they happen to be seen by others who are looking for talent, and they maybe get other opportunities. Beyond that, it's referrals, it's an encouragement. We're encouraging them to continue working. We're promoting the Basketball Africa League, which is the pinnacle of African basketball, which we hope will drive young people to continue working, to continue aspiring to higher goals. So those are some of the things we do specifically and organically, promoting our Basketball Without Borders program, the FIBA camps that we do in partnership with FIBA and the Kenya Basketball Federation. So letting young people know that these opportunities are out there helps to motivate them to stay engaged. And then we have other specific things that we're doing that give unique opportunities. Beyond that, there's a long way to go in that space, which you've rightfully pointed out.
Okay. Talking of long way to go, I think you have an ambitious goal of having 1,000 courts.
Sure.
In the next decade, all over Africa. You've started obviously in Kenya. How do you make sure that you achieve this goal, number one, and how many people perhaps, or how many talented young people do you intend to reach by achieving this?
Wow. So look, great question again. I think, one, it started way before Kenya. We built courts in South Africa, Morocco, Nigeria, Congo, like all over the continent. We've been building and continue to build. We have an ambitious target of 1,000 in 10 years. And we'd like to build about 100 of those here in Kenya. So those are the things some of the things that we are doing. And as we work with partners, we work with organizations that are local as well as international to resource these courts. That is one of our top sort of targets and goals as an organization. And so we're working diligently at that daily. How many young people will play on those courts? I mean, ideally in the millions, ideally in the millions over time. I'll give you an example. The court we built out at Kenya Academy of Sport, we went out and they keep a register. They're getting about 2,000 young players a week that come out and utilize that court. It's a double court. So that's the type of usage that we are aspiring to, and hope for.
Yeah. When you talk about 100 in Kenya, what are those, for lack of a better qualifications? What do I need to have a basketball court in my area?
Well, one, we need some backing and support, right? So the NBA is not just coming out and funding all of those courts. I think that's a misperception that is out there, that maybe we weren't clear in the beginning. What we are saying is we're building some of them, like Kenya Academy of Sport, like courts that we've done in all over the continent. But the example in Banana, we have a partner, and that partner says, hey, we want to contribute. We want to build a court at a school or in a community. That's what it really takes. It takes partnership. We are motivating and pushing to get governments to help us do this, because it is also their mandate to build facilities for their people, and in communities where there's a need, so young people have a safe space to play. We want to partner with them so that we're not carrying the load ourselves, but we are driving the initiative. So hope that answers your question, but that's kind of our focus and our goal.
Yeah, it does. Why I ask that? Because when I went to school, basketball was seen as for those in the urban areas, those who came from the villages. Perhaps loved the game but could not play it. Sure. They didn't have access. Sure. They didn't have the facilities. So do we see this also reaching the villages in the counties, or is it just for the urban areas?
Well, the lowest world court was in Banana. It was in, Kiambu, in an area where there are no basketball courts, right? So absolutely we want to get these out to the far-reaching areas of the country as best as we can. I always tell this story. My first basketball hoop, I took an old bicycle tire and I took all the spokes out of it, nailed it against a piece of wood on a tree, right? Oh. That was my first hoop. I grew up in sort of the rural areas of the United States. But we're not, that's not our goal. Our goal is to get courts built. But my point is, yes, we do want to get out to all areas of the country, as far out as we can get, because, there are no limitations, in terms of talent and drive and ambition, of a young person that wants to, if they really want to play the game. So we have to get the facilities out there so they're able to play the game.
What kind of support perhaps you've received from government? Because in Africa, government have been really blamed for perhaps not providing the right facilities to enable talent to grow. So I don't know what assurances of support you are getting from government right now.
Well, look, I gave the first example. Before we entered the country, the Kenyan government stepped up and said, hey, we want the NBA to be successful here. They signed an MOU with us, brought in the Ministry of Sport, Ministry of Education. That has led to a great working relationship with the Ministry of Education, where we launched a groundbreaking program with the ministry, in the schools, in the junior schools. And that program is going to expand. It's only as big and successful as it is and has the potential that it has, because the Kenyan Ministry of Education has been implementing programs in schools for many, many years. And so what they are investing enables us to bring our brand and expand, and contribute to what is already being done. So, the Kenya Basketball Federation, I know they receive a lot of criticism in the country, and they have worked with the NBA since day one. They help us identify referees, identify coaches, identify talent. When we need things brought into the country to donate, they make sure they help us get the letters we need to help us clear, so that we don't have to pay to give basketballs and uniforms and things away. So we've gotten a lot of support from the government. And I think that, if I'm honest, I think the critique is sometimes harsh. Cause as I've gotten to work with the Ministry of Education, as I've gotten to work, and I'm speaking only in sport. I'm not speaking about the larger government, but in sport, there seems to be a genuine care for the success of the game and young people. Now, could it be done better? Always. I mean, that's all of us, and I don't get into the politics of it, but my experience as Michael and the head of NBA Kenya, and our experience as NBA Kenya, we've gotten support from the government to achieve our objectives. Would we like for there to be more? Yes, we would. But if I looked at what we've received over the first year and a half, it's been blessings, it's been support, it's been advice. And we both have a long way to go to be successful, but it has been positive for the NBA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any financial commitments from government?
So we have not asked the government to commit finances to what we do. I don't think that is fair, right? I don't think that is, like we're a commercial entity. You can argue that time and all these other things invested have a commercial value, but no, we haven't asked the government for commercial support in what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talk about criticism for basketball association.
Sure.
I think it's because we haven't seen a Kenyan in the NBA.
Okay.
We have Tabit in Tanzania, Luoldeng in Sudan now, Kama
Yes.
has just signed for Phoenix, and I think
He did.
on Wednesday.
Yes.
What is it that we are lacking in Kenya that we can get to the NBA?
So that's an interesting question. I think, if you look at the 54 countries on the continent, only a handful of them have players in the NBA. The reality, if you only have 450 players in the NBA, statistically, the reality is you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than making it to the NBA. So let's just make that clear up front. But what I will say to that is, I think it's a matter of identifying the talent earlier, right? So if you can identify, like Kaman is unique. Malawach, was a refugee in Uganda. He's unique. He's 7'2". But if you don't find him until he's 17, 18, does he make it to the NBA? We don't know. He still could, but would he be there like now? No. We identified Kaman, when he was 14. And then he went into one of the most intensive high-level development programs in the world at the NBA Africa Academy in Senegal. Now, that being said, so the first thing is, yes, we got to identify the young Kenyans earlier. And when we see unique talent, we have to be able to get them into an environment where they can be developed properly. So that's anywhere, but specifically in Kenya. Now, on the women's side, a fascinating thing has taken place here. So one, you have a Kenyan lady, Elizabeth Ododa. Now, she didn't grow up in Kenya. Her father was a member of the Morans, played on the Kenyan national team, but she grew up in America. She's in the WNBA. She's with the Connecticut Sun. Now, you say, okay, but she grew up in America, so technically she might be an American with a Kenyan name, but she's going to always be Kenyan. But now you have Medina, who is now playing at South Carolina, and Medina has a very good chance of getting to the next level, right? You have a young lady named Grace Mbugua, who went over to the United States 4 years ago, I want to say, to go to school. She just signed with the University of Louisville. That's a big time women's program. Okay. So those are two of the top Kenyan females. And then Grace has a sister who's at Jackson State University. Grace and her sister are both 6'5". Medina is 6'6". Now they're making it organically to the highest levels of college, and Elizabeth was his WNBA. I think between Medina, Grace, and her sister, I can't think of Grace's sister's name, I think one of them will play in the WNBA, if not several of them. Medina's at the top university. I think she's got a good shot at it. She's 6'6". She's a generational talent. She's special. Now, that's organic success. If you look at that and you wonder how many more Medinas are out in Kenya, and if we found them and identified them at 12, 13, and we bring them maybe to a high school somewhere, or get them to the M-Pesa Foundation Academy, or get them to a high school in America, then you start to have a better shot at this. And with the boys, it's time to do the same thing. So with these search programs that we're running, these clinics and camps and tournaments we're running with M-Pesa and others, we're going to see the talent very early, and we're going to start to be able to help them get to places where they can develop.
You are talking about how women are doing so well.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of them.
Yes.
Why do you think women are trumping men?
I wouldn't say they're trumping. I think it's a talent thing, right? Medina, 6'6", she's just super talented. And she came, it's not like, I mean, the Kenya Federation and others have done a good job of, organically developing her, getting her to international competitions. But you can't say that she went through some development program and then she, same thing with Grace. Grace, someone saw her father, I met him. He got her over to the States to go to school. And I think it was more about the education at the time. She just happened to grow to be 6'5", uniquely talented. So you're going to have that. Come on. He pops out of nowhere. Players pop out of nowhere sometimes. I don't know if they're trumping the boys. I think that we just need to get out there and find the young talent in Kenya a lot earlier. And I think because it wasn't like Grace, Medina, it wasn't like they came through the school program and then they emerged. So we got to get those programs strengthened for boys and girls. And I just think in general, you'll see a lot more talent emerge. There's no question about the level of athletic ability and talent in Kenya. So it's just a matter of systems and identifying the talent early enough.
Yeah. You talk about the 6'5" and the likes, and perhaps right now if I have a child and he's 5-something and he's telling me he wants to play basketball, do I encourage him or?
Absolutely. Who's your favorite player in the NBA?
Giannis.
Mm-hmm. So who are the top 5? Give me the top 3 players in the NBA that you know of. Giannis? Who else?
Of course, LeBron.
Okay. Who's the greatest shooter in the NBA?
Greatest shooter? There are a number of
Steph.
Steph?
No. There's not a number of them. Steph is the best shooter to ever put on a pair of basketball shoes. Steph Curry. My point was trying to get...
Oh, it's not the biggest. Right.
This is my point. Is to get to... If you ask anybody the top 5 players in the NBA today, Steph is going to come up in that list every single time, right? Steph is one of the shortest players in the NBA. So do I have to be 6'5"? No, it helps, but it's not a prerequisite.
I think it's the perception.
The perception, especially in Africa. When I first came to the continent, a lot of parents was like, "Oh, my child, I don't even want to play because they're not really tall." I'm like, there have been guys in the NBA at 5'4", 5'6", like Spud Webb and Muggsy Bogues and guys that, very short compared to their colleagues. So that is a myth, and it's stronger in Africa than most places. But it's a myth. It's a myth. Mm-hmm. The NBA basketball now is about skill. It's about skill. Look at it. There used to be the Shaqs and they're massive and they back you down in the paint and they dominate you physically. The big men today, you got to be able to step out 25 feet and shoot a 3-pointer. You got to be able to dribble. You got to be able to handle the ball. It's NBA or success in basketball around the world now is about skill. Size does help. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't, but the most skilled players are the ones that flourish now in the game. Unlike years ago when if you were big, you could just dominate with your size. That's no longer the case.
Yeah. Just going back to the courts.
Sure.
And some of them are being built in some of the remotest areas. How do you make sure that this infrastructure is well maintained? Perhaps it's not vandalized. And maybe down the years, I'm coming to report that it's in sorry state. How do you make sure that these conditions that you put it now remain?
That's a great question. So it's about the partners, right? So our partner, for example, is the Kenya Academy of Sport. It's at a contained facility. They manage it. Mm-hmm. They own it. The last court we launched is with Loiswell Academy. It's connected to their school, which they run an incredible program there. So it's ours now, and they treat it like it's theirs, and they manage it like it's theirs. So it's about the partners, to make sure that they're going to take care of something that we don't own the facilities. We build them for communities and for people. So if the community feels like they own it and you have an organization or some people that feel like that they're responsible for it, it's on their land, they'll manage it and they'll take care of it. That's our strategy. And then what we do with our partners is we don't just build a court. We build budget into that so that we can conduct programming. So we're going to be training coaches and teachers at Loweswell. We've done the same at the Kenya Academy of Sport to make sure that there's programming after you build the court, so it doesn't become what was known like a white elephant.
Okay. So moving to perhaps now the elite from the grassroots, the Basketball Africa League,
Yes.
done its 5th year now.
Yes.
Tripoli won it for the first time. Good to see. And our Kenya team, Nairobi City Thunder, had a go, but didn't go as far as they would have wished.
Sure.
And it's been perhaps the same story for our teams in Kenya. Maybe what do we need to get over the line?
Time. I think if you look at the Thunder, right? I compare the Thunder to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Last season, Oklahoma City Thunder were one of the best teams in the NBA. A lot of people thought they were going to win. They got up there and they got knocked down. Why? Because they hadn't learned how to win. They didn't have the experience. Nairobi City Thunder got a lot of criticism because they went 40-0 here. They went there and they had to struggle to win the game. But if you were in the arena, I was there for every one of their games, you could see that it wasn't that the other teams were so much better than them. Some were not even better than them, but they hadn't been on that stage before. They hadn't been under those lights before, 10,000 people cheering, and, they hadn't been in that environment. Just like Oklahoma City Thunder. They had to learn how to win. They had to go through the trials and tribulations of losing on the big stage so that they were like, okay, when we get back to the big stage, that's what'll happen. So I think that's the first thing, speaking specifically of Thunder. I think if they qualify again next year and they get back to the BAL qualifiers, I think you're going to see a totally different story. And so now beyond that, there is work that needs to be done to improve the general level of the game in the country. You have a league that's running. That league, on the KBF, has been running for a long time. There's a lot of passion in that league, a lot of participation in that league. So now, how do you commercialize it a little bit more so that the players playing in it are actually paid to play? Most of the players in Kenya they might be like me and you. I'm at work today, but I'm in the league tonight, or on the weekend I'm playing. Whereas if you go look at the teams that have won the BAL, they're from Egypt, Tunisia, Egypt again, Tripoli now. Last year was Angola. Those 5 championship teams in the BAL all have one thing in common. You know what it is? They have leagues in their countries where guys are playing for a living. You play in Egypt, that's what I do for a living. So I'm on a team where I might be making $250,000, $300,000 a season. Now I come to the BAL, it's not like I'm putting a team together and trying to get there. Same thing in Angola. Petro de Luanda, they are flourishing. They're professionals. So how do we help Kenya get to that level where you have enough corporate involvement, you have enough, media involvement, where you have enough teams in the league that the teams are like the Thunder are paid as professionals. And so when you have that, you'll get more and more, professional play and professional delivery. But that's the big difference. And that's what Kenya and other countries have to aspire to.
Yeah. And Thunder kind of have a high affinity with sponsors. I would say they've been attracting a number of sponsors. Perhaps they've been able to bring in quality players, and maybe that leaves the gap between them and the others a bit too high. How do the rest manage to bridge it and bring the quality up there?
Great point. What is it that has made the Thunder? What is it that's made sponsors come to the Thunder? It's success and professionalism. So if I see success and I see that you're running your club like a professional club, I trust to put my money there with you, right? So I think that's the same thing that's needed from other clubs in Kenya. It's the professionalism that leads to success, which leads to, sponsors trusting you with their brand and with their money. And I think that's needed. Now, the onus sometimes is put on the federation. They have their responsibility as well to improve the league. And I'm told that they're working on that. But it's a combination of those two, in my humble opinion.
Putting you on the spot here.
Uh-oh.
We watched BAL in Rwanda for quite some time.
Sure.
Are we going to see it in Kenya anytime?
Are you putting me on the spot, or are you putting Kenya on the spot? So we would love to see. We need that to happen, man. We need it to happen. We want it to happen. What does it take first? If you look at the BAL is aired in over 200 countries. It's televised in over 200 countries, which means it's an NBA product, which means you need an NBA approved arena.
Mm-hmm.
BK Arena, world class.
True.
The arena, Sunbet in South Africa, world class. We need an arena in Kenya in order to bring the BAL here. And trust me, if you could snap your finger and build an arena tomorrow, BAL would be here season 6. I'm almost sure of it. Season 7 at a minimum. Maximum. We wouldn't take more than another year. We need the right facilities in order to host.
Yeah, well, that is because perhaps we've had an opportunity to speak to the higher ups, and if this conversation perhaps was held and what was said about it.
So the higher ups are having conversations with other higher ups. I say that in jest, but yes, there are organizations that are expressing interest in building an arena in Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
In Nairobi. And I know that those conversations are progressing, and but it takes time. But there's more than one organization that I know of who are pushing to get an arena built in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how long that will take. We know that there's interest. There's certainly a need, because it goes beyond basketball, right? You build an arena here, the BK Arena they brought John Legend, they brought, Boyz II Men, they brought many different artists, Kendrick Lamar. Imagine that here, it's lights out. It's a no-brainer if you can get that once that arena is built here. And I think it's going to happen. I don't know how long it'll take, but yeah, I think it will happen.
Yeah, just as we wind down, this Kenyan office now is the 5th in Africa,
Yes,
I believe.
Yes, it is.
South Africa, Senegal, Egypt, Lagos, Nigeria.
Yes.
What is the Kenyan office perhaps learning or taking from the others?
Good question. So, we look at where we're having success in, for example, different ways in different offices. So I have calls with the country heads, every week, and we talk about, what sponsorship did you sell? What was that? Example, in Egypt, they sold a sponsorship for around their international high schools. So we said, send us that proposal. We want to cater it for Kenya. NBA basketball school. What'd you do in that country? We want to do that in Kenya. So we learn those things from the offices. We share best practices. We talk often about what's working, what's not working. And we all have the same goal: grow the game in the country and expand outside the country to grow the game in the region.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a final one. OKC, they deserve to win the NBA?
OKC, say that again?
Do they deserve to win the NBA, in your opinion?
Of course. They kicked everybody's butt. You kick everybody's butt, you lift the trophy. No, they are, man, people got to watch out for them, because they could be, I'm not saying they are, but they could be a dynasty in the making. They've got SGA is, generational talent. He's special. And all the NBA brass and retired players are saying the same thing. He's different. They've got a young core. They built their team from the draft. They've got a lot of talent. They got a deep bench. They got a great coach. So I think they could be a dynasty in the making. Yeah. So they certainly deserved it. And look, remember, they had to go Game 7 against former champs, against Jokic, Denver. They went in there and beat Denver in a Game 7. They were on the ropes against Indiana. They came out of that. One of my favorite players now is Anthony Edwards. They wiped the floor with Minnesota which broke my heart, but but they are the best team in the NBA. Absolutely. Now I wish we had been able to see, Halliburton go the full game 7 because he was cooking early, and that would have made it a better game. But I still think that Oklahoma was going to beat them in that game 7. I think so, but we'll never know.
Okay, Michael, after 5 years, when you sit back,
yes,
after you have been in this role, as assuming for 5 years,
sure.
When you sit back, what do you want to say? I did this, and I'm very, very satisfied.
Thank you for that question. So, one, I would like to say that I represented the NBA and the game of basketball in Africa well, and helped to elevate both, right? I would like to say that beyond, the things physical that we can do on the ground, I'd like to see that we have Kenyan teams dominating in the under 16 and under 18 categories, if not dominating, at least winning and competing at the highest level in Africa. I'd like to say that there are a certain number of facilities that were built, and to your point, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids are now playing the game because of the facilities we built. And overall, just to say that we help contribute to building the foundation that led to the launch of an industry of basketball in this country and in the region. That to me is sort of the big one, because if we can do that, it leads to jobs. It leads to young people understanding that there's a direct correlation between success in sport, the game of basketball, and success in the classroom. So for me, and it leads to industry, it leads to business, it leads to jobs, it leads to young people being employed in the game and around the game of basketball. So that's what I'm hoping, that we're able to look back in 5 years and say we've set the foundation or contributed to the foundation of that in this country.
Okay. Finally, there's a young boy, a young girl in Kenya looking at NBA Africa Kenya.
Yeah.
And is their only hope perhaps to play professional basketball? Perhaps you look at the camera and give him the message. Yeah,
I mean, the message is, you just saw Kaman Malawach appear out of nowhere 2 days ago and sign as a number 10 pick in the draft. He's about to change his life and his family's life. Keep working, have faith in the sport, aspire to get to the highest level in your school, the highest level in your country, and then eventually the highest level in Africa and the highest level on the globe. And there's nothing that says you can't achieve it. So anything's possible.
Good place to end it.
All right.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.